My ex couldn't stand seeing me happy again, so he used our daughter against me. My ex-husband and I were married for 10 years. We had 2 daughters, Emily and Gabby, and for a long time I genuinely thought we were one of those families who would grow old together. Yeah. Cute. Anyway, he cheated, not with some mysterious woman from work, not with some old girlfriend, not even with someone he had been secretly seeing for years. A freshman in college, a literal college freshman. And then he left me for her. I remember sitting there during the divorce thinking, how did my life become this ridiculous? And the divorce itself was awful. He fought me over everything. Money, custody, schedules, the house. Literally anything he could turn into an argument became an argument. And while all of that was happening, he kept attacking my appearance. He told me I was ugly. He told me that was why he left. He told me he hated being married to me. And because apparently cruelty needed a detailed presentation with supporting slides, he also told me I wasn't as tight as I used to be. I don't even know what response he expected. A standing ovation? A thank you card? I was already emotionally destroyed, and he seemed determined to keep poking the wound just to make sure it stayed open. Emily knew what happened. She was 16, and she understood far more than I wanted her to. She resented her father. She saw me crying. She saw me barely functioning. She saw me trying to get through work while pretending I hadn't just watched 10 years of my life get thrown in the garbage, and somehow she became the one comforting me. That still makes me feel guilty. She was 16. She should have been worrying about school, friends, stupid teenage drama, whatever teenagers worry about. Instead, she was sitting beside her mother trying to make sure I didn't completely fall apart. Gabby was 8, so she didn't understand the details. She knew mommy and daddy weren't together anymore. She knew daddy lived somewhere else. She knew there was another woman, but she didn't understand why her parents had gone from married to strangers. And honestly, I was grateful she didn't. As terrible as my ex was as a husband, he was a good father. That made everything harder. Because life apparently enjoys adding complications. Just when you're already drowning, he loved the girls. He fought me for custody. We eventually ended up with shared custody, with the girls staying with me from Friday through Monday. And every single time I picked them up, I had to see his new wife, the affair partner, the woman he left me for. I tried to be mature about it. I really did. But there were days when I would see her standing there and my brain would just go, oh, cool. Here's the person who helped detonate my entire life. Then I'd smile politely because apparently we're civilized adult. Sure. Meanwhile, inside, absolute dumpster fire. I was especially scared that Gabby would start seeing her as her mother. That fear probably wasn't rational, but divorce had already stripped me of whatever emotional stability I had left. Then came the anniversary, our wedding anniversary, and because apparently the universe has a mean sense of humor, that was also the day my ex married his affair partner. I made it through work somehow, barely. Then during lunch, I went up to the roof, sat down, and completely lost it. I cried so hard I couldn't breathe properly. 6 years ago, that woman was standing on the other side of the life I thought I was supposed to have, and I was sitting alone on a roof trying to figure out how I had become the discarded wife in somebody else's love story. That's when Ben found me. He didn't know me. He didn't know my ex. He didn't know the entire disaster. He just saw a woman crying on a roof and apparently decided, yeah, I'm getting involved. He stayed with me. He listened. He didn't tell me to cheer up. He didn't tell me everything happened for a reason. He didn't give me some motivational poster nonsense. He just listened. And when I admitted I was too unstable to drive, he drove me home. That was the beginning. Our relationship moved quickly, but not in that insane we met yesterday and bought matching tattoos today kind of way. It was more like we recognized something broken in each other. Ben had lost his wife and only daughter in a car accident 10 years earlier. He had spent years carrying his own grief. So when I talked about mine, he understood that sometimes grief isn't dramatic. Sometimes it's standing in the kitchen staring at a coffee mug and suddenly remembering the life you thought you'd have. Sometimes it's driving past a restaurant and remembering an anniversary. Sometimes it's seeing a woman who looks happy and realizing you're jealous of a version of yourself that doesn't exist anymore. Ben understood that. And he was nothing like my ex, which honestly was a pretty low bar, but he kept clearing it anyway. He was gentle. He paid attention. He cared about how I felt. And most importantly, he never treated my daughters like baggage attached to me. He loved them. Emily started calling him dad after we'd been dating about a year. I remember the first time she said it. Ben hugged her and practically cried. He told me later that it had been so long since a daughter had called him dad. That wrecked me. Gabby eventually started calling him Daddy Ben, and every time she did, he looked like someone had just handed him the moon. He'd tell me his heart melted every single time I wanted a baby with him. We had a son a year ago. And yes, the girls were jealous sometimes. Not mean jealous, just kid jealous. They'd complain that the baby got too much of Ben's attention. So Ben would make a whole production out of proving there was plenty of him to go around. He'd take Emily shopping, play whatever weird game Gabby wanted, take me on dates, handle the baby so I could sleep. Basically, he became the kind of husband I'd once thought I was never going to have. He proposed while I was pregnant. We started planning our wedding. Emily was going to be one of my bridesmaids. Gabby was going to be my flower girl. And I swear, watching Gabby practice, walking down the hallway with imaginary petals was one of the cutest things I'd ever seen. She was so excited. She'd talk about the dress, the shoes, the flowers, where she was going to stand, everything. And then my ex decided he didn't want her there. The wedding was on a Tuesday. Unfortunately, Tuesday was his custody day. I couldn't move the wedding. Everything was booked. Vendors, venue, caterer, photographer, decorations, all of it. My ex knew this. At first he said it was fine. Then suddenly he decided he only saw his daughter 3 times a week and wasn't giving up his time for some party. That phrase still makes me angry. Some party. Sir, It is my wedding. You literally got married on one of my custody days, and I let our daughters attend because I understood that occasionally children should be allowed to participate in major family events. I even offered compromises. I offered to give him my days for a week. He refused. I tried practically everything. Nothing. So Friday, when I picked up the girls, Emily was furious. Not annoyed. Furious. She told me Gabby had been throwing a tantrum because their father had told her they were going on vacation on my wedding day. I immediately knew something was wrong because Gabby had been excited about the wedding for months. So I walked into his house and I was already angry. Not regular angry, the kind of angry where you can feel your heartbeat in your face. I demanded to see Gabby. My ex tried to act like this was all completely normal. It wasn't. So I called him out. I told him he was being a coward. If he didn't want Gabby at my wedding, he needed to tell her the truth instead of inventing a fake vacation. And eventually, he cracked. There was no vacation. He just didn't want her going. Gabby started crying. She said she hated him. Then she ran straight to Ben. My ex grabbed her. And this is where everything went completely off the rails. He yanked her away from Ben and shook her while calling her a brat who didn't appreciate her father. I saw red. I slapped him. Was that the smartest thing I've ever done? No, absolutely not. Would I like to have handled it differently? Probably. But in that moment, I wasn't thinking about court. I wasn't thinking about lawyers. I was thinking about an 8-year-old girl being shaken by her father. Because she was heartbroken, my ex moved like he was going to hit me back. Ben grabbed his hand and pushed him away. And that's when we left. We took Gabby with us because it was my custody time anyway. The second we got home, Emily asked me if there was any way we could keep Gabby with us forever. And then she told me everything I'd missed, everything happening behind closed doors. My ex had become increasingly angry ever since I'd started dating Ben. He'd tell the girls I had downgraded. He'd say Ben could never replace him. And after I got pregnant, it got worse. Apparently, he'd started pressuring his wife to have children. She refused. That caused fights. Then Gabby called Ben Daddy Ben in front of him, and something in him snapped. He started criticizing Gabby over everything. Little things. Shoes in the wrong place. Messy room. Talking too much. Forgetting something. Nothing was ever right. He also forced the girls to call his wife mom. Emily refused. Gabby was too scared to refuse. And Emily? She kept going to his house, even when she didn't want to, because she wanted to protect Gabby. She hadn't told me because she thought I was finally happy. She'd watched me fall apart during the divorce. She didn't want to be the reason I started falling apart again. That destroyed me. Because I realized I'd been so focused on building my new life that I hadn't noticed one of my daughters was carrying the weight of the old one. I told Emily she did the right thing by protecting her sister, but she should never have had to. I told her I was her mother. My job was to protect them, not the other way around. We spent that entire evening together. Hot chocolate, blankets, movies, the baby sleeping in Ben's arms, Gabby curled against Emily, and for the first time in a long time, I stopped thinking about the wedding. I just focused on my girls. Then Monday came. I had to return them. Gabby begged to stay home. I wanted to say yes. Every instinct in my body screamed yes, but I knew violating the custody agreement could hurt me legally, so I took her to school. Then we dropped them off. My ex stood at the door. His wife stood behind him. He grabbed Gabby's bag and pulled her inside. The door shut, and I sat in the car afterward feeling like I'd just handed my daughter back to someone I no longer trusted. I spent that morning calling lawyers. The first one said one incident wasn't enough. The second said the same. By the third call, I wanted to scream. Apparently, courts want patterns. They don't want one horrible day. They want documentation, dates, times, messages, photos, videos, evidence. Basically, apparently, I needed to become an unpaid private investigator of my own child's childhood. So that's what I did. Emily started sending me updates. Gabby was being ignored at dinner, excluded from activities, criticized over tiny things. Then Wednesday came. Emily called me from the bathroom. She was whispering. Her father had thrown away Gabby's flower girl dress. He said it was taking up too much space. Gabby cried herself to sleep. I wanted to drive there. I wanted to bang on the door. I wanted to retrieve that dress from whatever trash can he'd thrown it into and make him explain himself. Instead, I called the lawyer because apparently adulthood is mostly wanting to scream while filling out paperwork. Eventually, I found Mrs. Chen. She listened. I showed her the messages, the notes, everything. She told me we could pursue an emergency custody modification, but we needed more evidence. So we kept documenting. Then Emily showed me videos. Videos she'd secretly recorded of her father yelling at Gabby. I watched my 8-year-old daughter flinch, and something inside me just broke. Because you can read about your child being scared. You can hear about it, but seeing it, different. That was the moment I stopped thinking this was a custody disagreement. This was a pattern. And patterns don't disappear because somebody puts on a nice shirt and tells a judge they're a good dad. We built a case, text messages, videos, photos, the discarded dress, the fake vacation, the day camp he suddenly enrolled Gabby in for my wedding day, witness statements, everything. Meanwhile, wedding planning continued, which was surreal. I'd be choosing napkin colors one minute and calling a lawyer the next. I'd be standing in a wedding dress thinking, wow, this is beautiful. Then immediately thinking my daughter might not be here. It was emotional whiplash. Then we got the emergency hearing. The judge reviewed everything. My ex tried to frame it as me prioritizing a wedding over his parenting time. He called the day camp educational. He claimed I was manipulating the situation, but his explanation started falling apart. The dress had been donated accidentally. Then Gabby had supposedly outgrown it. Then he admitted he didn't want her participating in the wedding. Pick Pick a story, dude. Seriously. At one point, even I was thinking, does he not realize these explanations aren't helping him? The judge granted a temporary modification. Gabby could attend the wedding. She could be my flower girl. I nearly collapsed from relief. Gabby screamed when I told her. She jumped up and down. Emily cried. Ben picked me up and spun me around. For the first time in weeks, I felt like I could breathe. Then, because my ex apparently couldn't go 48 hours without creating a problem, he tried another stunt. He suddenly enrolled Gabby in a swimming lesson on the wedding day. Mrs. Chen sent him a reminder about the court order. He backed down. Then came the wedding. And of course, he showed up early. He wanted to talk to Gabby. No, absolutely not. We weren't doing that. Not after everything. Emily helped keep Gabby away from the drama while my ex argued outside. He accused me of poisoning our daughters against him. He accused me of replacing him. He threatened court action. Again, honestly, at this point, I was beginning to think his lawyer needed a vacation more than any of us. Emily finally confronted him. She told him his behavior was what was damaging his relationship with Gabby. Not me. Him. He didn't know what to say. For once. The ceremony went ahead. Gabby walked down the aisle. She looked so happy. Emily stood beside me. Ben and I exchanged vows. And I saw my ex sitting in the back. I didn't let myself look at him for long. Because I wasn't giving him the satisfaction of taking even 1 second of that day from me. At the reception, Gabby danced with Ben. Emily gave a speech about how Ben had shown her what a healthy father figure looked like. People cried. I cried. Ben cried. Even people who normally don't cry were suddenly wiping their eyes. And then my ex left. His wife stayed. Later, she quietly told me she had scheduled a consultation with a divorce lawyer. She admitted she'd been uncomfortable with his behavior for a long time. She'd just been afraid. I gave her information for support. Then I let her go. Because I couldn't save everyone. I could only protect my girls. The wedding was beautiful, but it wasn't the end. It was basically the opening credits. After the wedding, my ex became worse. He filed motions accusing me of parental alienation. He demanded makeup time. He threatened full custody. He made exchanges difficult. And then one night, Gabby came home crying because he told her that if the court changed custody, it would be her fault. That was it. She thought she had caused everything. She thought loving Ben meant betraying her father. I held her and told her the truth. Adult problems are never a child's fault. Never. Eventually, we went back to court. This time we had months of documentation. Not one incident. Not one bad afternoon. A pattern. Emily testified. She brought her notebook. Dates, times, incidents. She was 16 and somehow more organized than most adults I've met. My ex tried to claim she had been coached. She calmly corrected him. The judge listened. Then the guardian ad litem met with Gabby privately. Gabby told her she loved both parents. But she was tired of feeling like she had to choose. She was scared of disappointing her father. She was afraid to show affection toward Ben. She felt emotionally unsafe at his house. Those words destroyed me. The judge reviewed everything. My ex testified. His explanations changed again. The dress story changed. The wedding story changed. The day camp story changed. Everything became someone else's fault. Then the judge ruled. My ex was found to have engaged in a pattern of emotional manipulation and attempts at parental alienation. I was granted primary physical custody. My ex received supervised visits every other Saturday for 4 hours. He had to complete anger management, parenting classes, family therapy, and before his visitation could expand, he had to demonstrate actual progress. My ex exploded. He shouted about his rights. The judge basically told him that custody wasn't about his rights to access a child whenever he wanted. It was about the child's best interests. And honestly, that sentence felt like the entire 6-year nightmare finally had an answer. Because he'd spent years thinking fatherhood meant possession, like Gabby was something he could claim. Control, schedule, loyalty, affection. He wanted her to prove she loved him by loving everyone else less. And that isn't parenting. That's emotional blackmail with a custody schedule attached. The first supervised visit was strange, but calm. There were rules. No trashing the other parent. No custody discussions. No guilt trips. No manipulation. And Gabby came home smiling. That mattered more than anything. Over the next few months, things slowly changed. My ex resisted the anger management requirement at first. He filed another motion. It was denied. Eventually, he stopped fighting every single thing. The therapy helped. Slowly. Very slowly. Gabby stopped having nightmares. Her grades improved. She joined choir. She started decorating her bedroom permanently. That last part sounds small? It wasn't. Before, she kept posters and decorations packed away. Because she was always moving between houses. Now she knew where home was. Emily changed too. She stopped monitoring her sister constantly. She started making plans for herself. Friends, college, her own future. She finally got to be 16, then 17, then 18. A kid instead of a backup parent. Eventually, my ex's visitation expanded. 2-hour public visits, then longer visits, then eventually overnights. It wasn't perfect, but it was healthier. He learned to stop interrogating Gabby about our house. He learned to ask about school. He learned that loving his daughter didn't require making her prove she hated me. And that was probably the biggest change. A year after everything, we finally took our family honeymoon. All 5 of us. We went to the beach. Gabby collected seashells, and she saved some to show her father. That moment stayed with me, because before all of this, she thought loving one family meant betraying the other. Now she could enjoy a vacation with us and still be excited to tell her dad about the shells. No guilt. No fear. Just a kid being a kid. Emily eventually graduated with honors. My ex attended. He sat separately. He behaved. No screaming. No accusations. No drama. Just a graduation. And honestly, that felt bigger than the wedding. Because the wedding was one day. This was proof that our lives had actually changed. Ben eventually adopted Emily. My ex consented. Emily chose to hyphenate her last name because she wanted to honor both the father who biologically created her and the man who chose to show up for her. That decision was hers. And I respected it. Gabby still sees her biological father. Their relationship isn't what it used to be. Maybe it never will be. But it's hers. And that's the important part. She gets to decide what kind of relationship she wants with him. She doesn't have to protect him. She doesn't have to protect me. She doesn't have to choose Ben over him. She doesn't have to choose anybody. She can just be Gabby. And that is honestly all I ever wanted. Looking back, I still feel guilty about how much Emily carried. I still wish I'd noticed sooner. But I also learned something. You can be so focused on surviving that you don't realize somebody beside you is drowning too. I thought rebuilding my life meant finding happiness again. It didn't. It meant building a life where my daughters felt safe enough to be honest with me, where they could love different people without worrying someone would punish them for it, where Ben could be dad without needing to erase anyone, where my ex could be their father without controlling every relationship around him, and where I didn't have to spend every Sunday night wondering which version of my, daughter was going to come home on Monday. My ex and I aren't friends. We probably never will be. And honestly, I'm fine with that. He is their father. I don't need him to be my friend. I don't need him to approve of my marriage. I don't need him to like Ben. I don't even need him to understand why his behavior hurt us. I just need him to behave like an adult when it comes to our daughters. That's it. The funny thing is, he spent years terrified that Ben was going to replace him. He never understood that people don't get replaced by someone better. They replace themselves. Every time they choose cruelty, every time they make a child afraid to love, every time they turn affection into a loyalty test, every time they make their kid carry their emotional baggage. Ben didn't replace my ex. My ex simply stopped showing up in the way a father should. Ben just happened to be there when my daughters needed someone who could love them without asking for anything in return. And that's the difference. My ex wanted to be chosen. Ben simply chose them. Again and again and again. That's why my daughters call him dad. Not because I told them to. Not because he demanded it. Because somewhere along the way, they decided he earned it. And after everything, I'm okay with that. And that's where the story ends. I'm just glad the story ended with Gabby feeling safe. Emily finally getting to be a teenager instead of her sister's protector. And the family finding some actual peace after all that chaos. Thanks for hanging out with me through this whole messy story. If you enjoyed it, make sure you like the video, subscribe, and stick around for the next one.